let's get.
When used properly, AI can help you write a stronger essay while still letting you sharpen your own communication ability. And that brings me
Harlem, 1920.
Before we get started, y'all know what's going on, what's poppin', man. It's your boy T Mike, and I'm finna go and jump straight to it. Today we gonna learn about Marcus Garvey, man. I used to always hear this name. I heard Malcolm X say this name a couple of times. I heard a lot of people when they be saying Black History, they mention him. And I'm so glad the video was made by a YouTube channel called Black Stories Untold. They got some great content on there. So I advise you to tune in to that if you want to know something about the real history and not his story. But we finna watch this jump, man, cause I seen this a long time ago, but I gotta share this. We gotta analyze this and talk more about this, man. So whenever you watch this video, if you catch the live, shout out to you. But if you watch it later, man, just know this is some valuable information, man. Believe it. We gonna go and get started, dog. Can y'all see the screen all the way? Hope y'all can hear.
But on this hot summer day in Harlem, something different is happening. 2,000 people from across the world have descended on New York City for what would become the largest black parade in American history. They marched down Lenox Avenue like an army, complete with their own military units in pressed uniforms, nurses in pristine white robes, and a marching band playing triumphant music. This wasn't just a parade. This was a display of power and sheer will from a people who had enough. Every uniform group, from the nurses to the motor corps, represented a piece of what Marcus Garvey had built, a nation within a nation. And the man himself stood in the center of it all, dressed like an African general, leading what he called the Universal Negro Improvement Association. But just 6 years earlier, Marcus Garvey had arrived in America with very little money in his pocket and the utter bravery to pull off a wild idea. The idea that black people could build their own economic empire. And he did exactly that, building an empire of 700 branches across 38 states, a newspaper reaching hundreds of thousands, ships, factories, businesses.
rise of Africa for the Africans, those at home and those abroad.
But he had enemies, powerful people that wanted him gone for trying to break the status quo. This is the story of how a humble stonemason's son built the largest mass movement in African American history, and why the most powerful nation on earth was determined to stop him. St. Anne's Bay, Jamaica, 1887. Marcus Garvey was born into a world where the shadows of slavery were still looming large. His father was a stonemason, known throughout St. Anne's Bay for something unusual, a private library. It was rare for any man in Jamaica to have that, let alone a black man. His mother worked as a domestic servant and farmer like many black women of her time. By age 14, Marcus was apprenticed to his godfather, Alfred Burroughs, a master printer. This wasn't just a trade, it was an education in how words could move people to action. In Burroughs' print shop, young Marcus learned to set type, operate presses, and most importantly, craft messages that would resonate with readers. But Jamaica was about to teach him his first brutal lesson about power. The British Empire still controlled Jamaica with an iron grip. The system was simple. Black workers toiled for poverty wages while white colonizers lived in mansions. The message was clear. Know your place. Stay in your lane. Marcus saw this reality up close when he became involved in labor politics. In 1907, he helped organize a printer's strike in Kingston. The strike failed, but it taught him something crucial. The system wasn't just unfair. It was designed to be unfair. He wasn't satisfied with this reality, so he did something few others dared. He left. 1910, Costa Rica. Here, Marcus witnessed how colonialism wasn't just about flags and governments. It was about corporations, too. The United Fruit Company was practically a government unto itself, a massive American corporation that controlled vast stretches of Central America through banana plantations. This company didn't just own the farms. They also owned the railroads, the ports, and even had enough power to topple governments that didn't cooperate. In their plantations, Marcus saw a system that looked suspiciously like slavery with a different name. Black and Caribbean workers lived in company shacks, bought food from company stores, and earned wages so low they could never escape their debt. They would work until they broke, then discarded and replaced. For Marcus, this was his first glimpse at how freedom could be an illusion. The plantations might not have had whips and chains, but the system was designed to keep black workers trapped and powerless. 1912, London. Next.
There's something hopeful about new beginnings. Fresh starts. That's one reason why Jesus Christ invites everyone to be baptized. He offers the world a chance.
Marcus traveled to the heart of the British Empire, a city that controlled nearly a quarter of the world's population. London's grand buildings and wealthy streets were built with riches stripped from colonies in Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean. But Marcus wasn't there as a student or tourist. To survive, he worked as a messenger and handyman at the African Times and Orient Review, a newspaper focused on colonial politics. The pay was low, but the real education came after hours, in between shifts. He spent countless hours in London's public reading rooms, devouring books about history and politics. He may not have had formal education, but he made the city his classroom. Through his work at the newspaper, he met African students and activists from various colonies who were studying at places like Birkbeck College. Their conversations opened his eyes to how Britain and other European powers had carved up Africa like a cake, taking its gold, diamonds, and resources while claiming to bring civilization. Each stop on his journey revealed the same pattern, whether it was fruit companies in Costa Rica, canal builders in Panama, or colonial officers in London. The system was designed to keep black people working for others but never building wealth for themselves. Then, in London's reading rooms, he found a book that would change everything. It was written by Booker T. Washington, the most famous black leader in America at the time. Washington had been born a slave and built Tuskegee Institute, a school that taught black Americans trades and skills. His message was simple: learn trades, work hard, and gradually earn respect from white society. I rid up from slavery, Marcus later wrote, and then my doom, if I may so call it, of being a race leader dawned upon me. Where is the black man's government? Where is his king and his kingdom? Where is his president, his country, his men of big affairs? I could not find them. And then I declared, I will help to make them. But where Washington preached patience and gradual progress, Marcus saw the need for something more radical. He had seen too much exploitation, too much systematic oppression to believe that patience alone would bring freedom. He returned to Jamaica in 1914 with a plan that would shake the foundations of world power. His travels had shown him how the system kept black people dependent and powerless worldwide. Now he was ready to build something new, an organization that would give black people the economic and political power they'd been denied for centuries. The Printer's Apprentice was about to become a prophet of black liberation. Marcus returned to Jamaica with big dreams, but almost no money. The island was still firmly under British control, and most black Jamaicans were trapped in a cycle of poverty, working on plantations or as servants for wages that barely kept them alive. His first attempt at change was modest. In a small Kingston meeting hall, he gathered just 13 people to form what he called the Universal Negro Improvement Association, or the UNIA. Their goal? To do what the British colonial system refused to do: educate black people and help them build businesses of their own. But Jamaica wasn't ready. The local elite, both black and white, saw Marcus as a troublemaker. His message of racial pride and economic independence frightened them. After a year of struggle and barely any growth, he made a bold decision. He would go to Harlem. But this wasn't just any neighborhood in New York City. Harlem in 1916 was becoming the unofficial capital of black America. Hundreds of thousands of African Americans were fleeing north from Jim Crow terror in what historians would later call the Great Migration, the largest movement of black people since slavery. These newcomers were packed into Harlem's tenements, often working back-breaking jobs for low wages. But something else was happening here too. Black-owned businesses were opening. Black artists and writers were finding their voice. Black political movements were growing. Marcus rented a small basement room and began holding meetings. His first audience? Just 17 people. But something happened when he spoke. Here was a man talking about black pride, not as some distant dream, but as a birthright. He didn't just talk about racism. He exposed the whole economic system, keeping black people dependent on white businesses and and white employers. A race without authority and power, he would thunder to his growing crowds, is a race without respect. Word spread through Harlem streets and tenements. The basement meetings grew from dozens to hundreds. Marcus knew he needed a bigger platform. In 1918, he launched a newspaper called Negro World. While other papers avoided controversial topics to keep their white advertisers happy, Negro World refused to run ads for skin lighteners or hair straighteners. Its message was clear. Black is beautiful. Black is powerful. And black people need to build their own economic strength. The paper hit a nerve. Within months, it was selling thousands of copies, not just in Harlem, but across America, the Caribbean, and even in colonial Africa, where European governments tried to ban it because they feared its message of black independence. By 1918, Marcus had built something unprecedented. The Union was no longer just a small group in a Harlem basement. It was becoming a movement that would shake America to its core. But Marcus was just getting started. His next move would be his boldest yet, and it would either make him the most important black leader in America or destroy everything he built. Imagine being black in 1919 America. You can't eat at most restaurants. You can't stay at most hotels. You can't even walk through the front door of most businesses. And then Marcus makes an announcement that sounds impossible. In a packed Liberty Hall, the UNIA's new headquarters in Harlem, Marcus declares that black people are going to build something that had never existed before, their own steamship line. The white-owned shipping companies had names like White Star Line and Canard Line. Marcus's answer? The Black Star Line. To him, this was more about breaking a chain.
Can anybody guess what this stuff is and what I'm going to use it for? This is mullein that I picked out of my garden.
A chain of dependency that went back to slavery. Every piece of cotton, every banana, every ounce of sugar that left black hands, it all had to travel on white-owned ships. Black businesses couldn't survive without depending on white shipping companies. Marcus's plan was audacious. Sell shares in the Black Star Line to black people at $5 each. That's about $75 in today's money. Not cheap for people making poverty wages. But something remarkable happened. Black porters, maids, factory workers, people who had never owned stock in anything, lined up to buy shares. This was buying a piece of freedom. Within months, they raised enough money to buy their first ship, the SS Ronald. Marcus had it renamed the Frederick Douglass. When it sailed into harbors across the Caribbean, thousands of black people would crowd the docks just to see it. A ship owned, operated, and crewed entirely by black people. The Black Star Line became more than a business. It became a symbol of what black people could achieve. Soon, Marcus was announcing plans for regular shipping routes between America, the Caribbean, and Africa. Black businesses would finally have their own transportation network. By the end of 1919, Marcus had proven something powerful. Black people could build their own institutions, run their own businesses, control their own destiny, but his greatest triumph was still to come. The summer heat baked the streets of Harlem as 2,000 delegates from 22 countries made their way to Liberty Hall. This was the first international convention of the Negro peoples of the world. Nothing like this had ever happened before. In a time when most black people couldn't even vote, there were delegates from across the globe gathering to form what Marcus called a government in waiting for black people everywhere. The convention looked more like a gathering of a nation than a protest movement. The African region marched in military formation, black men in crisp uniforms who had fought in World War I, now serving as the security force of the MIA. The Black Cross nurses, trained in healthcare and first aid, wore pristine white uniforms inspired by the Red Cross. If white society would have let black people serve in their institutions, Marcus would build new ones. Then came a moment that would echo through history. Marcus unveiled a new flag, red, black, and green. The red for the blood shed by black people in their fight for freedom. The black for the race. The green for Africa's rich land. Today, you'll still see these colors at civil rights protests and in independence movements across Africa. You'll also see it in the banner for our channel, located right above the subscribe button. Maybe give it a click while you're looking around. The convention's most important moment came with the signing of the Declaration of Rights of the Negro Peoples of the World. Think of it as a black declaration of independence. Years before the United Nations would declare human rights universal, this document demanded an end to racial discrimination political independence for Africa, equal justice under law, and the right of
Hello.
black people to control their own destiny. Not everyone in the black community supported Marcus's vision. W.E.B. Du Bois was everything Marcus wasn't. Harvard educated, born in the
Jim
North,
Bob.
respected by white society. As leader of the NAACP, Du Bois believed in integration and working within the system. The clash between these two men was a battle over the future of black liberation. Du Bois called Marcus the most dangerous enemy of the Negro race. Marcus called Du Bois a tool of white supremacy. This divide between working within the system and building separate black institutions would echo through civil rights movements for decades to come. Marcus's growing power hadn't gone unnoticed. J. Edgar Hoover, head of what would become the FBI, saw the movement as a threat to America itself. After World War I, Hoover was obsessed with what he called radical Negro activities. One FBI agent reported that Garvey was, without doubt, one of the worst insiders in the United States today. Among the Negroes, who, I believe, would do almost anything for him. The government was terrified that millions of black people were following a leader who preached complete independence from white society. Hoover built an unprecedented operation to destroy Marcus. His agency created a special investigation section just for Negro agitation. They hired their first black agents specifically to infiltrate the UNIA. Any black person who spoke out against racial injustice became a target for surveillance. In Hoover's own words, they needed to find some way to stop Marcus before he awakened black Americans to their own power. An internal memo from Hoover revealed his desperation. Unfortunately, he has not as yet violated any federal law whereby he could be proceeded against from the point of view of deportation. The FBI opened Marcus's mail. They tapped his phones. They planted spies in his organization. Every speech, every meeting, every movement was documented. They weren't just watching a man. They were watching a movement that threatened to change the entire social order. And eventually, Hoover was able to find the cracks in Marcus's empire through the Black Star Line. In that summer of 1920, Marcus had built the largest black movement in history. Millions of followers, businesses across the country, a shipping line, a newspaper reaching hundreds of thousands. He was at the height of his power, and he was also about to lose everything. In the summer of 1922, Marcus made a decision that would haunt his legacy. He traveled to Atlanta to meet with Edward Young Clark, a leader of the Klan. To understand why a black leader would meet with the Klan, you need to understand Marcus's thinking. The Klan preached racial separation. Marcus preached black self-reliance. In his mind, they shared a common belief that the races should develop separately. The backlash was immediate and fierce. Black newspapers called him a traitor. His followers were shocked. Even those who had defended his other controversial decisions couldn't understand this one. J. Edgar Hoover saw his opportunity. Now, with Marcus's reputation damaged, they made their move. He couldn't arrest Marcus before because that would just look like political persecution. He needed something that looked legitimate, something that would let him destroy Marcus's movement while appearing to simply enforce the law. He found it in an unlikely place, the Postal Service. See, there was a powerful federal law that made it a crime to use the U.S. mail as part of any deceptive scheme. Mail fraud, they called it. And with the Black Star Line struggling, every letter Marcus sent promoting the company, every stock certificate mailed to investors, every piece of promotional material that went through the Postal Service could now be called fraud. It didn't matter that government agents had helped sabotage the ships. It didn't matter that some of Marcus's own officers were taking bribes to undermine the company. It didn't even matter if Marcus truly believed he could turn things around. All that mattered was that he used the mail while the company was in trouble. That was enough for federal charges. That was enough for prison time. The evidence that Hoover had, a single empty envelope addressed to one investor. The trial in 1923 revealed how desperate the government was to stop Marcus. The prosecutor painted him as a con man preying on poor black people. Marcus, defending himself, tried to explain his larger vision, but the all-white jury had made up their minds before he spoke his first word. The sentence? 5 years in Atlanta Federal Penitentiary. Hoover had discovered a powerful new weapon, one that would be used against black leaders for decades to come. If you couldn't arrest someone for challenging the system, you could always find some technical violation to bring them down. In 1927, President Calvin Coolidge commuted his sentence, but ordered him deported back to Jamaica. Marcus would never set foot in the United States again. The movement couldn't survive without its leader. The UNIA splintered, membership declined, the businesses closed one by one. The great dream of black economic independence seemed to die. But even as Marcus boarded the ship that would take him from America forever, seeds he had planted were beginning to grow. His message of black pride and self-reliance had spread too far to be stopped by prison bars or deportation orders. Every time you see another nation on the African continent become independent, Malcolm X once said, you know that Marcus Garvey is alive. Malcolm knew what he was talking about. His father, Earl Little, was a UNIA organizer who preached Marcus's message of black pride to his children. Marcus's fingerprints were everywhere in the decades that followed his deportation. The Nation of Islam adopted his message of black economic independence and racial pride when they built their own businesses and preached self-reliance. They were following Marcus's blueprint. In Jamaica, a new religious movement called Rastafari emerged. They saw Marcus as a prophet, taking his teachings about African redemption and pride and black identity to create a new faith that would spread globally. But perhaps Marcus's greatest impact came in Africa itself. Kwame Nkrumah, who would lead Ghana to become the first independent black African nation, explicitly credited Marcus's teachings when Ghana designed its first shipping line after independence. They named it the Black Star Line. The red, black, and green flag Marcus created in 1920 became the colors of African liberation. You'll find them in the flags of nations across Africa and at civil rights protests around the world. His message of economic independence found new life in every generation. When civil rights leaders in the 1960s talked about black capitalism, they were echoing Marcus. When Black Lives Matter protesters today talk about supporting black-owned businesses, they're channeling his vision. The movement Marcus built may have crumbled, but the dream survived. A dream of black people standing proud, controlling their own destiny, building their own future. J. Edgar Hoover might have been able to destroy Marcus, the person, maybe even his reputation. His organizations may have been dismantled. His businesses may have been destroyed.
I need a decent spot. I'm gonna record like that. But you've always been like that, see? Yeah, before you hear me, all that. Thank you. You're welcome. Off the top. I love you.
Hi, I'm Andy Levian, General Counsel at the DNC. We just sued President Trump and Doge, and I hope you will support us.
Destroyed, but Marcus's dreams were prison-proof. In that summer day in Harlem in 1920, 2,000 delegates marching down Lenox Avenue, the African Legion in their uniforms, the Black Cross nurses in white, the flags waving red, black, and green in the August sun.
Look for me in a world without a storm. Look for you, great fighters come back with countless millions of black men and women who have died in America, those who have died in the West Indies, and those who have died in Africa to aid you in the fight for liberty, freedom, and rights.
He was right. You can see him in the independence movements that freed Africa from colonial rule, the Black Power, raised fists of the 1960s, the pride in black-owned businesses today, every movement that declares Black Lives Matter. His organization fell. His businesses were destroyed. He died in London in 1940, far from the movement he built. But the Printer's Apprentice from Jamaica had changed something fundamental. He showed black people everywhere that they didn't have to ask for dignity. They could stand up and just take it. Remember how this story began? A young man with very little money in his pocket and an idea that seemed impossible. That black people could build their own future, control their own destiny, stand proud in their own skin. The government could break his organization. They could shut down his businesses. They could send him to prison. They could force him into exile. But they couldn't stop his idea, because somewhere right now, someone is raising Marcus's flag. Someone is starting a black-owned business. Someone is standing up and declaring their dignity. Marcus Garvey lives on in every person who refuses to believe that freedom is something you have to beg for. Look for him in the world. He's still there. If you enjoyed this video, leave a comment down below saying what we should cover next.
Hey man, say that was inspirational, bro. That was powerful, man. That's TNT, man. Back on, you here to see how they my people have a thing now with this victim mentality, bro. As we can see, it's all possible, bro. I forgot, black people have like $1 trillion worth of spending power or some shit like that. Like, if we had the money, folks, to do all of this, it's really the mindset. As he kept saying, bruh, we don't have to ask for no freedom. We don't have to ask to have pride in yourself, to try stuff, bruh. It's not about being racist or no shit like that. It's about just having courage, bruh. Having dignity. Being proud of who you are, bruh. That leads to all these great things, bruh. We had our own everything. And most people don't know this. This was after we was in bondage and all of that, bruh. So everything is possible, bro. That's the message I want people to get from this episode. That we can do it. As you can see, that's TNT. Believe it, man. I'm highly proud of, man. Man, that was inspiring, man. Believe it, dog.